Welcome to tonight's episode of the Athari Club. We are a group of role players in the backside of nowhere in Northamptonshire, England. I'm Anthony. I'm your keeper of secrets for this Call of Cthulhu adventure. This is like I said, a Call of Cthulhu adventure. Therefore, there are certain mature themes. There's cosmic horror. There's death. There's madness. And there are players who say ridiculous things that should not go out on any other platform. With that understood, I am so very excited to invite you to join us in an evening of almost terror once they get there. So at the top, you'll see you have Felix and John.
Hey.
And you see bottom left, you have Christine and Pete. They're a little bit of an item. And then at the end of the table, and also moderating our anyone that decides to jump in on chat is Rob. He's taking care of that. So this late afternoon catches our group of adventurers in a steam-driven carriage chugging along a road heading towards Wales. That's
the place, not the not the things that swim in the sea.
Just for those that don't know. And as they are heading through the countryside, they're a little concerned because the patchwork that they've put together for the damage that they sustained during their last day is a bit dodgy, but so far it's pressure's holding steady, and away they go. I'm going to start with letting them go around and say a little bit of something about their character, description, things like that, so it'll be interesting for you. And then we're going to come back around and we'll go through a little bit of how they got to where they're at. So starting out, Felix, if you want to talk a little bit about Archibald.
I'm Archibald Bolt. I'm a 35-year-old apothecary, skilled in pharmacy and medicines and chemicals and chemistry. I'm a short, stocky, strong guy.
John?
I'm Henry de Havilland, and I'm sure you know my name. Yes, that de Havilland. The manufacturers of the fine aircraft that you know and love and that take you around the world. But that is my brother's concern since the death of my father, and he has left me to pursue a different route in life. So that is what I'm doing.
Rob?
I play a character called John. Very mysterious, seems almost pathetic, has a very strong connection to the de Havilland family. People often think that I'm a hand servant to Archibald, which, hey, if they think that, let them think it.
What do you look like?
I look strange. Forehead and eyebrows are somewhat akin to Neanderthalic man. Bone structures look very strong jaw type, long black scraggly hair, very unkempt. I do this because most of the time I live in the dirt. I'm an archaeologist, so appearances and things like that just don't come over natural for me. However, Archie does force me, sometimes at gunpoint, to get dressed in a bow tie and trousers, and he thinks it will make a man of me.
Very good. Christine, tell us about Lynette.
So I am playing Lynette Walbert. She's very young for her career. She's 24. She's an antiquarian, and she carries around with her at all times. She's got a book, little glasses in a little bag. They're not her glasses, they're her father's, but she holds them dearly. They're a precious ornament. She's quite young and mousy. She kind of slips to the back a lot and unseen, but she's watching you all the time. She's taking things in, making little notes in her books. But yeah, that's Lynette.
That's Lynette. And last but not least, Pete.
Yes, so I play James Arnoth, the storied explorer, published author. You may well know him from his best-selling books South America, History and People, and From America to the Andes. He's quite tall for the age, at 5'10", dark hair, very weathered and tanned complexion.
Very good. So, to get you to the point that we're at, and to understand a little bit about the background of this group, that's a fairly disparate organization. What I'm going to have us do is, first off, I'm going to have John talk a bit about when they first met.
An intriguing moment. We were invited to dinner at an exclusive club in London. This, in and of itself, for me, of course, was not an entirely unexpected event. As somebody who moves in these circles, I am often invited to such things. My family name carries a lot. And, of course, my appearance and being one of the most eligible bachelors in London. But this was exceptional because the group of people who surrounded me and came with me and who were invited alongside me were oddly diverse, shall we say. Now, at this dinner, we were invited by our hosts. I shall not name them for
Sir Cecil and Lady Frida Willis.
Yes. Sir Cecil Delane, I was hesitating not to name him simply because I figured that his privacy was more in keeping. But certainly, yes, Sir Cecil, of course, was somebody who knew my father well. Lady Frida, not so much. She is, of course, more my age. And we were invited to dinner, and they invited us to join their organisation, which investigates the strange and the unknown. Now, somebody who has experience, shall we say, in the ways of the weird, this was a welcome opportunity, but even I was to be surprised by some of the things that we were to find. As a result, we were sent on our way in the steam car in which we now find ourselves, and we were asked to go and investigate whether a member of their organisation who had gone quiet was well, and whether they were still in one piece. Along the way, we have already had a rather interesting experience. Overnight in a small village not far from the Welsh border, we experienced some strange happenings which eventually required us to, well, I should say modestly required me to use magic to resolve the situation. You may be surprised to hear of the magic. Magic is, of course, something that most people do not truck in, but of course I have experience in this area.
So we'll pause there, and I'm going to shift over, and Pete, can you describe the happenings that you had to deal with?
Yes, most disturbing. As an explorer, I've seen many things around the world, and most of which, supposed acts of witchcraft and things like that. A man of science can put down to, psychological things, belief systems, that kind of thing. But these strange events that happened on our journey to Wales, really I struggle to explain in any kind of scientific manner. The weather was terrible that night. The rain was lashing down, it was just getting worse and worse, and eventually we crashed out of the road when a young lady, dressed quite inappropriately, ran out in front of our vehicle. She was in a bad way, so knowing that there was a small village up ahead, we picked her up and took her through the foul weather to the local inn, where we tried to get her some help and call from the local doctor. But as it transpired, she was actually the local doctor's daughter, who had run from his house in terror because two local brutes had invaded the house and had shot her father, and then disturbed something which turned out to be the focus of our investigation.
Well, pause there. Christine, would you mind taking over the story for a little bit? It's fine.
Don't ask me.
Rob,
Don't ask me.
can you jump on the story for a second?
Yeah, so when we got there, we found some louts who decided to do something really stupid. So they, by all accounts, they'd opened a casket of some sort and let out an evil of which the world has never seen before. No, it was some really bad juju. So we watched as one of them came to a demise that suited him because he really was a plonker, a 94 karat gold plonker for letting the thing out in the first place. And then the entity, whatever it was, I believe it escaped into the night, and we were left with one person, which we took back to the inn, and at which then we split up and we investigated, like any good team does. Whilst back at the inn, and our investigations went in two separate directions. Gunfire came from the rear, gunfire came from within, and then the mists of time clouded over us all until tonight.
Until tonight. Okay. So we will slip back to that point, and we're not in the car. My memory of where we ended is slightly interesting. So you're in the building, in this pub, correct? Is this where we ended?
We ended
Yes.
we had a
We ended
Faraday
at the
cage.
house,
We
didn't
You had the
a
Faraday cage. Okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought. Okay,
I'm
Felix.
not going to lead on that because I'm trying to remember exactly what happened.
Okay.
So we
I
Christine,
don't
do you have that?
I don't know. My
Okay.
mind's just
we
done.
trapped the entity.
Ah,
We trapped the entity, I think, back in the
Back
casket.
into its casket, yes.
how
Yeah,
amazing
we-
is
By
that?
using
We
it
had-
to
with the one-
I'd found a diary from the doctor which gave a series of sentences, I believe,
Yes.
which I'd given to Henry. Henry
Yes.
And there
had
was that-
used them to control the beast to get it into the Faraday cage that we created.
Yes,
But
yeah.
Archibald, in an act of astonishing bravery, the like of which I doubt I could have done, volunteered to be the bait
Yes,
yes,
for
that's
this
right.
sacrificial
Indeed he
ceremony.
did.
At risk of his own immortal soul,
That's right.
he volunteered to be inside the cage. This lightning, electricity, something along those lines. And by virtue of his potentially extreme sacrifice, we managed to trap the entity back into its casket.
Well, I would like to draw the attention to the requirements of the magic that were part of that particular process.
Mm,
Yes, you read them very well.
very
No
interesting.
small part. My experience in these things, of course, was very useful at that point.
Very good.
So now we have an entity trapped in this casket.
Yes.
We have indeed sealed
And
it
that's where
shut.
we ended.
We
So
sealed it
you-
with wax or something, wasn't
Yep.
Mhm.
And you actually still have that casket.
I think that's something we should take back to the club to
So-
properly.
Indeed.
Yes.
They may have.
Yes, because we found the wax and the diaries, haven't we, and the doctor's.
So this does
They may be able to seal it in a wooden crate and place it into their storage warehouse.
exactly
Yes.
right next to some other things.
Yes.
So
Where top men will investigate.
be right on it. So that does bring up a little bit of a thought. Do you continue on with your mission to go out and investigate whether or not something's become of this person, this Augustus Wayland, who has not poked his head above the parapet for a while? They're concerned about, or are you going to run back to the club?
So
That's a bit of a ways out.
Yes.
Augustus Wayland wasn't the doctor, though, was it?
No, this just happened along the way.
Yes. I would vote to continue on.
Indeed.
I agree. I agree. I
I don't
think
Very good.
like
time
to
is
leave
of
a
the
job half
essence at
done.
this point.
Very good. And as far as the casket itself, aside from being slightly cool to the touch, it's hard to tell because of how cool it is, the ambient temperature anyway. But it seems a little more chilly to the touch than you would expect. Aside from that, you're not seeing any damage to the wax. You're not seeing anything weird like that. It appears that you have contained whatever came out of this little casket.
What about the book? Where is the book?
Who wants it?
I believe that
The book with
it's in
all
the
the-
hands of
was that
Henry.
really-
It is in the hands of Henry at the moment.
Henry's got it.
Got it.
Indeed.
So Henry has the book.
Who's Henry?
Me,
Yeah.
Your best friend.
Henry.
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 Your best friend.
My best friend, who I called Archie, all the way through my introduction, and no one queried it.
I thought you were
Nice.
talking about him. Well, okay.
Sorry,
Well, there you go.
sorry. Okay, so we can tell right from the off, we are a professional outfit. Jeez, Rob. Okay.
And I'm
As professional
Hi,
as
my name
possibly.
is.
That's it. Yeah. we
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
for this conference, my name will be Henry.
And if you can't tell, this is our very first time to do this.
Cheers.
Just as professional as is all possible. So, we find our group in the steam carriage. Who's driving again? Who had the heavy machinery? It was you.
These two, I believe.
wasn't it?
Taking it in turns.
Yes.
I believe we were.
So who's at the control levers to use the?
I think Henry shall take the lead this time. I did, in other words, crash the vehicle last time.
Very good.
To be fair,
Well,
when a half-naked young woman runs out in front of you, it's hard not to.
it's
It
hard.
was the moment at which you took your hands off the levers and covered your eyes because you thought that was the appropriate thing to do that was the problem. Right?
Well, yes, clearly.
Well, I mean,
To,
obviously, it's the 1800s. I mean, gentlemen don't look at
I am
ladies,
not a gentleman.
ladies' forms.
Very
However,
I am not a gentleman.
I am definitely not a gentleman. I was ogling that baby. Well, there was not more.
a well-turned ankle can turn the head of any man.
Absolutely. So we have instead at the wheel we have Henry.
Hmm.
You have the two levers in hand. There's the third lever that serves sort of as a brake, and you're looking at the gauge that's got the pressure. It's not quite the pressure you'd expect. You figure there's probably some leakage from the patching, but the steam pressure is holding, and as you continue onwards, you crest a hill. As of course we're in the Marcher area, you've got plenty of hills as we're coming into actually about mid-Wales.
Mhm.
You know that you're probably only a couple of miles out. Before we move forward, is there anything you'd like to do before you get to this house? Any discussions? anything that is going on as you're having this particular section of the drive.
Well, James is being very quiet and withdrawn, unlike his usual self. He's still coming to terms
Processing.
with the changes to his worldview.
I'm in the
Yes.
back.
He looks, in fact, quite angry a lot of the time.
Very interesting.
I'm in the back because I smuggled a book out of the library and it was one of James's, and I'm just chortling at some of the mistakes, the many mistakes that I'm reading through about his thoughts on history.
So,
Very good.
so Henry's concentration levels on this driving are quite exceptional. He's normally very chatty. He's normally not particularly focused, but for once, I'm actually paying a great deal of attention. And that's because what I did was I persuaded everybody that I was very, very good at driving, because of course I have a persuade of 90, but my operate heavy machinery is actually 1, so I'm terrible at actually the process of doing so. So the maximum concentration, and he's driving, I mean, wonderfully gently and carefully.
Yes.
And every single turn he slows down and he glides the vehicle around. And if you were to ask him, he would definitely persuade you that the reason for this is because he's being very careful because the machine has obviously taken damage. But that is a bald-faced lie because he's just terrified that he's going to crash.
Well, so far
I've done
he's
this
done
before.
well. Initially, starting out, you could tell that he was learning exactly how hard to pull a lever to get it to go which direction. But rapidly, you feel comfortable enough that you're lost in your thoughts as you're still processing.
You and I both sat in the front, weren't we? So we swapped
Yes.
over
Yeah.
seats so we're in the front.
Yeah.
So, Christine, Lynette, what's going through your mind?
Well, Lynette is much like John here. She's actually got her nose buried in a book that she got from the library of Sir Cecil and Lady Frida, which is actually a book by a John Longford. Very interesting book on ancient Egypt.
How interesting is that?
So, to be honest, she's not paying a huge amount of attention to what's going on around her. Since the ride is so gentle and relaxing,
Very good.
she's not paying a huge amount of attention to what's going on around her. She's fascinated reading these details, and she keeps looking up
Very
at
good.
John.
So, where is the casket?
This is what's on my mind about securing the casket and this book, and whether or not we take it with us on the adventure or make a common decision to leave it somewhere safer.
The
You
book,
have it with you. Where
the
is
book
it?
is the book is wrapped
Yes.
in a piece of oilskin,
Very good.
and it is secured inside my shoulder bag, which is also waxed waterproof, and it is sealed up. It has a drawstring and a cover over it, and it is sitting in the front next to my feet.
Very good.
Okay.
So
The
the book is absolutely secure.
So as far as I remember, if you use the book, it can pull you in, you can lose your soul, but it does do something. It helps you get rid of fears or something.
Hmm.
There was some. It had some.
It increases your arcana knowledge.
Yeah.
Your Cthulhu mythos. That's it.
But we need to make a decision about what we're doing with the casket, because that's a dangerous object.
I would suggest that we lock it in the trunk.
There is a boot.
There's a boot.
Yes.
You need to make sure it's padded so that the seal doesn't get
Yeah.
broken by some random pothole.
So, the boot
Thing of the
holds
future, apparently. I've seen it in
several
Crystal Ball.
blankets, probably specifically for if the weather turns and things like that, because it's not a particularly environmentally proof cabin in which you're cruising. There are glass panes on the side windows, but you know it still is chilly enough as you're
It's not
moving along.
insulated.
Now that amazing storm that hits you guys appears to be brewing. A second round is coming your direction. However, up front, looking at the map, you realize that you're probably only a couple of miles out. Any last minute things?
So I'd like to. We'll wrap the casket in one of the blankets
Yes.
and make just tie it with string or anything that's available, a
Yep.
belt or something,
Absolutely.
just so that, and have that in the boot.
Very good.
And
I will
lock
pack
the
it in my
boot.
luggage.
You can put it in your luggage
Very
as
good.
well, and then put that in the boot, and then lock the boot, and then give the key.
Very good.
Give the key.
Would you really want an evil thing, if it got out of a casket, to be wandering around in your underdrawers?
Probably not.
May not be
But
the
on
first
the other
time
hand,
that's happened.
at that point, my underdrawers, well, actually, I might have urgent need for a pair of clean underdrawers. So you could be
Very
right.
good.
So one would then ask the question, would it enhance your ability, or would it negate your ability in one's bedroom?
Aha.
Well,
If an
Anyway.
evil thing is in one's underdrawers, you
And this is why this is a mature stream. I think you had something you were trying to
I close
say,
the window, go back to my
Henry.
book.
Yes, because I'm aware of the fact that we're getting closer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow the vehicle
Okay.
and just pull to the side of the road. What's the traffic like here? Are there any other people around? Are there any other vehicles?
No, you passed the last village probably a half hour past, and at this day and age, the villages are not quite as close, and
Just sheep.
you've turned a couple of times off of the main road onto slightly smaller roads and smaller roads. I'm going to have you make a quick drive check as you're moderating your speed down.
Mhm.
Still, are we still seeing sheep and stuff?
Yeah, oh, there's always sheep in Wales. You can't.
Well, the roads will all be tracks, really.
They are at this point. It's not a road.
Okay, that's
You've gone off of the graded.
let's roll that.
Where they
Where do you
just use the
choose the dice?
steam graders to push across for steady riding, and even closer to London, they've cobbled those
Is this-
things well out.
Is this easy, regular?
No, you're going to roll, and you'll tell me what your score was.
Okay, it's 35.
Over. What's your-
20 is my drive auto.
Okay, so all that happens is that for a second you're like, you move the stick in the wrong direction. You like to speed up instead of slow down, and then you correct. However, when you do that, there's a gout of steam out the back, and the vehicle starts slowing more than you're expecting, and starts going to a crawl. You guys are sort of wondering why he's slowing down, but you figure you've probably blown the piece that you had attached to seal.
James,
Well, yes.
sorry to disturb your thoughts, but I fear this vehicle may need further repairs before we are able to continue much further with it.
Well, it was a temporary repair, so
Indeed.
shall we stop and take a quick?
I shall
quick
pull
look?
off the road. If
Okay.
there's a convenient point somewhere that's
There's
flat
a-
enough for
yes.
us to.
So
Stop.
on either side are low hedge rows. Sadly, a bit tighter than you'd like, but you can see ahead that it looks like there's a place.
I stick it into the equivalent of neutral and let it roll down
Okay.
and then stop. Kind of standing on the brakes to stop.
The edge of the verge is a little soft, probably because of the heavy rains, and it sinks down a little on that side.
Okay.
However, there is a turning just ahead of you, and the turning leads through some. It looks like probably they were fruit trees at one point, but they've been neglected and have at least a year's overgrowth that you'd think probably should have been trimmed back, leading up to a circular driveway that you can see through it, and there's a main house, and you realize that this is the Wayland estate. Yes, you have made it just far enough that there it is.
And
And
fortune favours us, it seems, at last.
so I will show this to our readers. I did not make a really cool screen for you. But I will also pass this now out to the players. This is what you see.
How far are we from the? Are we leading up to the main house? Are we coming
So
in
you're
at 6 up the drive? Are we heading in this way?
you're not in yet. You're
Right,
on the road out.
We're on the road
Yes.
out here, so we're heading in towards
Yes.
this section. Okay. Pass that round.
Yeah, did we get a letter of introduction from Sister
Oh,
Cecilia?
yes, you did. I can assume that Sir Cecil would not have been as remiss as not to send you with a letter. So you can see the house, and I'm going to flip in my book so I can see exactly where
That
we're at.
reminds me of something.
It
I
does.
ponder,
Huh?
I ponder it. I ponder the layout, and I ponder it.
Huh. So ahead of you, you can see that there's a gravel pathway cutting through a garden towards the front door. And you can see that through the trees. You have not left the vehicle yet unless you choose to. I think that we had James stepping out of the vehicle to go look at the possible damage. And Henry, were you staying in the vehicle or?
I'm going to get down and rather than looking at the damage, which really isn't something that I'm that familiar with, I trust James to be able to give a good account of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start preparing my equipment. So I'm going to take my firearms out and just make sure that they are.
Okay.
I cleaned them last night and made sure that they were dry. But I'm going to take them out of their packaging and make sure, particularly my rifle, I'm going to take out and just make sure that it's
Very good.
it's all set and everything's fine. My sidearm I'm going to wear. I'm going to clip around my belt.
Okay.
And my rifle I'll put back into its pouch and put it over my shoulder along with my bag.
Is that
So I have all of my equipment with
is
me.
that under your coat, or are you wearing openly so that anyone sees that you're wearing it?
So my coat, so that the sidearm will be my sidearm will be under my coat. My
Very good.
revolver will be under my coat, so it's not obvious that I'm carrying that.
Very good.
But the rifle, it's obvious, but because it's also obvious that it's put away, it's not easily to hand.
Is it in a canvas bag?
Yes, it's
Some
I
ties.
have a canvas carrier.
Very good.
Which so it doesn't have a strap with the rifle itself.
Okay.
There is a small strap that's attached to it, but when I'm carrying it, I put it into a bag
Got it.
and I close the bag up. The idea being that it's kept
Dry.
dry and clean.
And
And so
you've
forth.
done this before. This is not your
Yes.
first rodeo as far as
No, I mean
carrying weapons.
I'm familiar with hunting and
Absolutely.
as somebody who has good experience with firearms and maintaining firearms and looking after them. It's obviously part of what I do. So
Very good.
Is it raining right now?
It is.
It is still raining heavily, or
No, it's at this point it is a light rain, but it is, as you step out, fairly chilling to the as it gets into the collar and things like that. As you move around to the back of the steam carriage, you can see that there's the riveted on piece that you guys had worked through placing over the tear in the steam engine is gone. It could be back down the road somewhere, whatever. There is definitely a lot of steam that's ruptured through there. The coke bricks that you've loaded in are maintaining the fire. It's continuing on bubbling away, but you're losing steam rapidly, and you'll probably run through water very rapidly as well.
well, that's not something that we can repair in a
No, it's
by the
not.
side of the road. So
Have
I
we-
would suggest we shut down the vehicle.
Very good.
Have we got water containers on the vehicle?
There is a to use a gauche term, a jerry can.
Yeah.
Ooh, that actually is a racial slur. If you guys didn't know,
I didn't know.
for Germans
Really?
from the World War II. So any Germans out there, we are not making a slur.
How is it used as
not investigate.
Yeah, let's not investigate that at this point. Yeah. Once again, mature themes,
Oh, yeah, interesting.
and yes,
Well, the reason that the British called it that because they were far superior to the British
Probably
and
so.
American versions.
probably exactly so.
And they were highly prized.
I didn't realise
So,
how
eventually
racist
we
Mickey Mouse
reverse
was.
engineered them and stole them
I know.
to size.
Absolutely, yeah. They were.
Doesn't the Americans,
Yes.
brilliant,
So you do
Yeah.
have a container that would just give you enough to get another several miles as necessary.
We need to act on that, and we need to do due diligence.
Like you said, so you basically you're just going to let the last piece of coke burn out.
We just shut it down in good order. Make sure the steam is released.
Yes.
Um,
Choosh.
yeah.
There's a big
So,
puff of steam.
I sit in the driver's seat following your instructions and pull the various levers at the right point.
Very
as
good.
you tell me.
So where did we actually come to a stop?
So you are
On
out
the driveway?
on the
We're
road,
still on the road.
and the drive goes off to your right, up ahead of you.
So we pulled off to the side. We're not in the
Why
road.
have we stopped?
On the road, just
No,
off the road.
Why have we stopped? I'm
Because-
asking because I'm in the
because
back. and
You're
I
in the
don't know
back.
what's
You don't
going
know.
on.
The repair to the vehicle gave out
Yes.
and not drivable at the moment.
So
It was only a temporary repair.
Technology. I get my pack and I start walking.
Okay, so you step out of the vehicle.
Yeah.
So there's now two of you out of the vehicle. Anyone else?
yeah, I'll go and start exploring this property.
Can I suggest that what we do is we, before we head off, we take stock of our situation and make sure that we are prepared, both for the short walk and for any longer moments that may be ahead of us. Last time we were a little ill prepared for what came ahead. Some of us were ready for action, others were not, and we were not as together as we needed to be.
Well, if by ready for action you mean that you ran out of the inn and left your comrades behind, then yes.
I
would
go.
suggest that we do,
I go to the rear of
discuss.
the car.
Always.
Okay.
Yes.
I open the boot. I get the blanket that the
Caskets in.
casket's in, and I rewrap the casket,
Very
and
good.
then it goes over my back under my backpack and knotted at the front.
And we'll take it.
Are you going to take it?
Sorry.
Are you taking it with you?
Well, I'm not going to leave it in the bloody car.
Okay.
No, that's done.
Um,
It needs to be under protection.
and
Fair
the
enough.
hat
You
goes
either
on.
leave somebody with it or
Should be very interesting.
So we're taking the extra
This
blankets
could be
as well,
very
and the
interesting.
jerry can, because the
Very
jerry
good.
can might need refilling.
It's full.
It's full already.
Yes, it
so
is.
we're okay. So
And
we just
I
need
say,
Cold.
Henry, are we ready?
No, no.
No, we
Okay,
need to
okay.
we need repair.
we need
a
a
machine.
We need a patch
Yeah.
repair on
A
that.
machine
Yeah.
shop.
Or should we push?
Pipe
I
work.
need to make sure that everyone else is ready because I do not want to be faced with circumstances where I am heading after something terrible and I suddenly find myself with no one at my back.
I'm going to look down the drive and prepare for the.
Well, I would suggest that should circumstances require it, that we stop to consider before running off on our own.
Certainly, some of us are doers and some of us are thinkers. I do understand that.
I mean, last time there was a young
I would
lady to look
argue-
after, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yes, I would argue that your doing precluded your thinking.
So,
Now, as happy as I am to let time go on, because I've seen a lot of hours and seconds pass in my lifetime, I think maybe shut up and get on with it.
I will say
Could well be
that after your last experience, there is a bit of jitters there, James, because things have gotten weird for you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, the
much
supernatural was all just hocus pocus. It didn't really exist, and then suddenly there it was, face to face, and you had to deal with it. And processing that has not been simple.
I see the
Yeah.
I see
Suspicion is there.
I see the thought lines crease across the face. So what I've done is, whilst I was actually chortling at some of the comments, and I did make some amendments in the sidelines,
Uh-huh.
and I give the book back, and I go, just something to think about on whilst we're walking, and I hand his own book back to him.
Ah,
Oh, Yeah, no, of course.
Don't-
of course.
Don't
Pull out
give
a
it back.
pen
Don't.
And autograph the book and hand it back.
That's awesome.
No. That's
So,
fine.
I would love to read your history there.
just would like to little shout out to
So primarily
Kovisochi, who is now following us on Twitch. Thank you very much.
Noise of the sound, unfortunately.
Oh,
So we are not alone just talking to the internet. There's actually a couple of people out there.
Get them to comment.
As
Real people.
They're real
oh,
people.
hey.
They're all real people. Everyone's a real people.
Except us, who are
Except for us.
pretending to
We're
be.
pretending to be as it is.
That's right.
So with that said, you're all out of the vehicle. You're in a light rain. You see that John has made himself a haversack that has the casket in it. You see that Henry has armed up.
I have my sidearm in a pocket as usual.
And I don't remember exactly how you were all dressed for travel, but we'll get to that as you choose to describe it. Crunch, crunch, crunch. You're walking through fairly wet gravel, going up the driveway towards the house itself. Do you choose to go directly to the front door?
Yes.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
happy
so.
to do that.
Definitely.
Fair enough. So we need each of you, if I remember correctly, to roll a spot hidden.
Spot hidden.
Yes.
So that most people would be at 25%, wouldn't they?
I rolled my first roll of the evening, 100.
Oh no!
Okay.
You're
Not
still
spotting much.
quite into your thoughts. You
78.
spotted nothing. Not so much.
Not so good.
13.
Whoa.
Ah.
You definitely.
So I made it at a hard. No, that's me. Henry made 13. Did you make 13 too?
No, it would actually tell you who made the 13.
So, and by the way, our dice rolling thing is not functioning, so feel free to roll your dice and just tell me how it goes.
60.
Hang on a second.
So yours didn't come up. Felix's came up.
It did.
Well,
Yours did not. I'm only
So
seeing
the 13
Felix and me in that room at the moment.
Yeah, it's not functioning. So go ahead and just roll as you would. So who is passed? Okay, and you said it was a hard?
I got a dot, dot, dot.
In fact,
Okay.
I might have even made it extreme. Extreme's a quarter. Is it a quarter or a half? I can't
I'm
remember.
oblivious.
Let's roll it
to
again.
Fifth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Right. No, I made a hard. Not
Okay.
extreme.
Okay, so my first one was a dot, 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 so God knows what that means. But my second
Oh
one
no, you made it.
came out as an 81, so I failed.
Very good.
I made it.
No, it wasn't very
Ah.
good.
Hard success? Full success?
Regular success.
Regular success.
Very good. So both of you notice walking up that strangely, you know, the grounds are really unkept for what you would expect for this type of place. And there's no smoke coming from the chimneys, even though it's fairly cold. So a little bit surprising. And then John, you notice as you walk up, there appears to be the silhouette of a man looking out of a window just off to the right side of the door.
John.
Ground level?
Sorry, not John. I say to Henry.
John.
Oh, you say John.
James.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm just ahead and I'm assuming those two are, well, he normally,
Shadows you.
well, yeah, him and I normally
Attached
seem
to
in
the
sync,
side,
but I'm
right?
also assuming at this point that James is ahead and I'm making some assumptions about the shape of our group. Do you see to the right, the window, you see the silhouette? Is he still there?
Is he still there?
Oh, yes.
I can see him.
Yes.
Is that
Absolutely.
ground level or on a different floor?
Yes, I see him.
No, it's not. It's ground floor.
Ground
Burnett?
floor.
Mm-hmm.
Archibald. Archibald.
Archibald?
Yes.
You see him.
I've just been.
I just drift back.
Yep.
So as we're heading up, I just drift back and I just talk to these two.
There's something lurking.
You see to the right.
On the
You see him looking at us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I see him now.
Out the corner of your eye, keep an eye on him. Are we going to go straight at the door, or are we going to cut around the building? And he's on the ground floor, yeah.
He is. Appears to be staring out directly towards you.
He knows where we
Though you think, proportion-wise, seems almost a little larger than you'd expect.
I think we.
Well, as things stands at the moment, he's not hiding. We have our letter of introduction. I say we appear above board and approach the front door.
He knows we're approaching. There's no point.
Shall I let you approach the front door, and I shall, and we shall head up to the front door, and then what I will do is I will sneak down the side of the house, and just take a peek through the window.
Okay.
Are you satisfied with that as a course of action?
Are you
I think
planning
I
to
can
go
move.
off to this side?
So what I was going to do was if we walk up to the front door,
Yes.
and then I will push myself up against the wall, and
Okay.
if I need to, duck down under the windows and just sort of sneak along,
Okay.
and then
Below where the
yeah. So where the window is, I will come up the side of the window and just try and sort of look
Okay.
round and see
Very good.
who he is.
So the rest of the group moves towards the front door.
The idea is that we'll all move up to the front door,
Okay.
and then what I will do is I will just sneak against the wall, down low under the windows if needs be, along to the relevant window,
Very good.
and then I shall pop up just before the window, and
Very
then
good.
Scare the shit out.
and then I shall look round at the window
Yeah.
and see.
Are you hoping
Or
that
pushed up
he
against
comes
the
to
wall.
the door? Are you hoping that?
What I'm hoping is that I can see who he is. He looks a little strange, so I'd like to get
Very good.
more of an understanding of who he is.
Well, I would think that opening the front door would be the
So
way to do it.
we will
You may think that.
move that direction, and he's whispered his plan,
Mm-hmm.
and has separated from the party. And you're standing in front of the door, and he is now positioned down to. There are a couple of small shrubs that you sort of have to push your way through. Not a big deal. A little wet, and
Already
but
decent
you are
bushes, so.
you're below the window.
James,
Alright.
James is wondering about Henry's
So
upbringing, that he thinks that this is
So-
appropriate behaviour to do when
If
approaching
this is the
someone's
window-
house.
Yes.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up. So it's to the right of the door.
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah. So I've sneaked along here. I've popped up here.
Yes.
I'm pressed up against the wall,
Very good.
but I'm upright. And
Yes.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get right up close and then sneak round and look through the window and see if the shape is still there and who it might be.
Very good.
And James is
I'm
going
trying to do that as stealthily as possible
So
while they're ringing the doorbell.
there is not a doorbell. There's an old-fashioned knocker.
Then I
Don't
shall
press.
resoundly
Tonk.
knock the knocker.
It is very loud, and you're not hearing any responses immediately. It almost sounds like it echoes through like an empty space. Boom, boom, boom. A little bit eerie, and then you hear, I'm coming, sir."
Do you want a stealth check, by the way?
What?
A stealth check.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'm happy with your movements.
All right.
Do you choose to stand up?
Sorry.
You hear the voice as well.
Yes, but before, so as they're knocking, what I do is I look round to see,
Speak.
just peek
Okay.
to see, and that's where the stealthy bit comes in to try and hide
In the
from.
house when I was
I know they're
outside.
looking out, but I want to just look in and see what they look like
So
because they looked a bit strange. So I wanted
I'll
to
hold
see.
this up for everyone to see. And it's actually a bust.
Right. Okay. No problem. I'll turn and walk back.
Very good.
So I've joined them at the door by the time that they're
Very good.
going.
So-
Do I recognise the bust? Is it of something familiar or?
Let me do a intelligence check.
I'm smart, me.
Oh, you're the thinker.
Yes, I made that at regular, I think, rather than
Okay.
hard.
I didn't.
So So
Oh, it's 50%, isn't it? Half.
so yeah,
Yeah.
so you
Just under
you
half.
think it looks a little bit like one of the figures you saw in the paintings back at the Athari Club. There was a painting over one of the hearths that had a group of people standing around, smiling together, and it could be that it was that same figure that you saw sort of off to the side with his arm around a lady.
In a Victorian photo.
I know.
Augustus
Very-
Wayland with his friend, Mrs.
I thought
Utami.
of painting, but yes. Okay. So the door opens, and standing in front of you, there's a gentleman dressed very much in the style of butler. He has tails. He does have a tie, black tie, and he looks very formal. He's probably, you guess, in his mid-50s. Silver hair combed back. And he says, well, visitors. And he does a slight bow. He says, if you'll follow me, I'll let you into the lounge. He says, I'll get the master of the house.
Thank you, good man.
You see that there's a ladder, a standing, so a fold-out ladder so that you could see on like a light, and there's a chandelier hanging down that he probably was on that right before when you knocked, whatever he was doing. He says, I apologize, I was working on the lighting. And you see that it's all lit up very nicely.
Well, I understand that we weren't expected.
Yes.
I do apologise for the
Absolutely.
inconvenience.
Excuse me, I need to...
Okay. So what we're going to wind up doing, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back. You said you need to step up, and we'll be back in just a minute. So we took a quick break as our characters composed themselves before going into the building, and our players took a quick comfort break. We will be back shortly once I edit the next video. See you soon.